After 25 years of installing landscapes, there are plants I will never put in a landscape again, and I can almost guarantee at least one of them is in your yard right now. I've installed thousands of plants over my career. Some of them look great at the nursery, but given a year or two, look terrible in a landscape. Others are highly invasive to the native ecosystem, while some just completely lied on the tag about how big they would actually get. To be perfectly honest, number 6 on this list might make some of you upset because historically, it's been one of the most popular landscape trees in America. But stick around. I'm not just telling you what to avoid, I'm giving you alternatives as well. Also, if you have a plant in mind that's not on this list, let us know about it in the comments below. Hi, I'm Dr. Tom Warren, and you're watching A Plant Doctor. Let's get started. Number 1 on our list is English ivy, or Heterohelix. This is extremely invasive pretty much anywhere outside of its native range. It can grow in full sun, it can grow in full shade, it can take over horizontal structures, and as you can see here, take over vertical structures as well. One of the things that makes it so invasive, it has a modified root that we refer to as a tendril. A tendril will allow it to attach to almost anything, and as you can see here, it is actively girdling this tree all the way up to the very top limbs, and the top limbs of this tree are now dead, all because English ivy has taken over the tree. This plant has the ability to literally bring down buildings. What you're looking at here is a 1935 newspaper article showcasing Boatman Hall, which served as the president's home at the college where I teach for several decades. Unfortunately, this house came into disrepair and was torn down. It literally sat where the camera is sitting right now. Part of the reason it was torn down, the tendrils of this English ivy got into the mortar of the brick. It cracked the mortar and the bricks were literally falling out of the house. It will do the same thing to a vinyl siding house as well. It'll get in between the grooves of the vinyl siding and the siding will begin to pull apart from the house. This is a bad news bear plant. Don't plant it under any circumstances. Great alternatives for English ivy. For horizontal ground covers, consider wild ginger or Christmas cactus. For vertical structures, consider climbing hydrangea or Virginia creeper. Number 2 on our list is this mess here behind me. This is Chinese privet, or Ligustrum sinensis, incredibly invasive. Now, to be honest with you, it is a beautiful landscape shrub. Where I'm at, it's semi-deciduous, semi-evergreen. It never quite drops all its leaves, but in the springtime, late spring, beautiful white flowers. It's drought resistant, all of the things you would want. It gets nice and full, tall, can screen off neighbors, but it has taken over a lot of our native landscapes. As you look here, going down the roadsides where I live, it is literally everywhere on the border between fields and woods. This is a landscape plant that I would never recommend to use. However, we do have great native alternatives, one being wax myrtle, Marilla cerifera, and another one being Carolina laurel cherry, Prunus caroliniana. Number 3 on our list is this vine here twirling up the tree. This is Lonicera japonica, or honeysuckle. Beautiful yellow, white to orangish flowers in the springtime, puts on a nice foliage, however, incredibly invasive. Wherever you find privet, most of the time, see we have privet right behind us, you'll also find honeysuckle. It has taken over native landscapes and it's decimated some of our native plants. Not only will this plant wrap around other vegetation like you see here, it is notorious for getting on fences and wrapping around fences as well. And then when you go to clean it off, it is a nightmare getting it off a fence. But the good news is we have great native alternatives as opposed to using Japanese honeysuckle. Consider using trumpet vine, Lonicera sempervirens, also Carolina jessamine or Gelsemium sempervirens. Next on the list is this almost impenetrable fortress behind me. Any type of spreading bamboo, incredibly invasive. Now, if you want to screen the neighbors off, this will get the job done, but you're not doing any benefit to the native ecosystem where you live if you plant this in your landscape. Also, it is a maintenance nightmare. These plants have rhizomes and stolons that have the ability to go all the way underneath sidewalks and driveways and pop up on the other side. Now, roughly 25 years ago, I worked for a landscape company and we got assigned a job to get rid of some spreading bamboo on our property. And what it took was a lot of effort, multiple rounds of coming in, mowing it down with bush hogs all the way down to the ground, and also several applications of restricted use herbicides, some pretty nasty stuff, and it got rid of it. Avoid all that headache in general. Don't plant this plant. Number 5 on our list is this deciduous shrub to my right. This is the butterfly bush, or Buddleia davidii. Now, here in the southeastern United States, this plant is not considered invasive. However, in many parts of the world, in particular the Pacific Northwest and the northeastern United States, this plant is considered highly invasive. Additionally, although butterflies love this plant, the caterpillars cannot feed on the leaves of this plant at all. A great alternative to using butterfly bush in the landscape is to consider using some sort of milkweed species. There's dozens of species out there. Just simply Google your region, native milkweeds. There should be a list that pops up. They're going to be a perennial plant, meaning they die back in the winter, and then they're going to come back up each spring. And they're going to do 2 things for your native butterflies. One, the butterflies can feed on the flowers, but also the caterpillars of those butterflies can feed on the leaves as well. Number 6 on our list is this tree behind me, Bradford pear, or Pyrus Colliana bradfordi. Honestly, it should be higher up this list, but we're going to put it at 6 for now. Now, as a landscape tree, it is absolutely beautiful for, we'll say, the first decade. Every spring, beautiful white flowers, great shade canopy in the summer, awesome orange fall color. But then things start to happen. If you look at the crotch angle of this tree here, it has very narrow crotch angles, and the branches can get the same diameter as the trunk, and these branches can grow for 20 or 30 feet out. We get a big wind, get an ice storm, this will be the very first tree that falls apart in your landscape, guaranteed. And you can see it here on this tree. Some of these lower limbs over the years have been removed. That doesn't get into the fact that this plant is also extremely invasive. This time of year, early spring, it's incredibly easy to spot along roadsides. It grows anywhere in the first, we'll say 20, 30 foot of a wood line. It grows in open fields. It'll grow along fence lines and pastures, literally everywhere. And it's not supposed to be there. Highly invasive. Alternatives to Bradford pear that you should consider are eastern redbud, or Cirsus canadensis, and also 2 types of dogwood. We have Cornus florida and Cornus alternifolia. Number 7 on the list is actually a native for me here in the southeastern United States, but in my opinion is a terrible landscape tree. This is Acer saccharinum, or the silver maple. Why do I not like silver maple? Number 1, it does not live very long. An old silver maple might be 50 years old. Secondly, it does not have very good branch structure. I often see silver maples breaking limbs relatively easily. A third reason is its root structure. The roots run very shallow and they run very long across the ground as well, making it very hard to mow around. Also, the roots can bulge up sidewalks, driveways, or even crack a foundation. For these reasons, I do not like silver maple. Alternatives for silver maple are actually in the same genus, Acer. I would recommend Acer japonica, the Japanese maple, or Acer rubrum if you want a native, which is the red maple. Number 8 is Nandina domestica, or heavenly bamboo. I'm okay with Nandina as long as it's a non-fruiting variety. So this has been crossbred and crossbred again. Different nurseries have their own branded non-fruiting Nandina. The problem arises when we have fruiting varieties of Nandina in the landscape. They have beautiful red berries, birds eat the berries, and then they fly off in the woods, and then we have escaped Nandina in the woods. So alternatives to Nandina are Nandina themselves. Just make sure you're getting a non-fruiting variety. I believe Arbor Dwarf is a good variety that does not fruit. Monrovia growers, they have one called Sienna Sunrise. That's a good one as well. There's several on the market. Just do your research before you purchase or plant Nandina. Number 9 on our list is river birch or Betula nigra. And you may be thinking, what is wrong with river birch? It's beautiful, has this exfoliating bark. Most specimens are multi-trunked like you see here. Great shade tree, beautiful fall color. You can uplight these with outdoor lighting and they look spectacular. There's a few things that I do not like about river birch, and most of it is just placement in the landscape. I'm not necessarily opposed to the river birch. I'm opposed to where they get planted in landscapes. Planted too close to a house. This is bad news. Just like with silver maple, they have very shallow roots that tend to run a very long ways. So that becomes a problem for foundations of houses. That becomes a problem for sidewalks. That becomes a problem for driveways as well. Additionally, if the flower bed or the mulched area around the river birch does not go out far enough, mower blades tend to find the roots as well, and eventually the roots get scalped. I'm not going to give you alternatives to river birch because personally, I really do like this tree. It's a good tree. We just have to be very careful with where we put it in a landscape. Number 10 on the list is Taxodium disticum, or bald cypress. It's a native plant, but here again, I don't think it belongs in very many landscapes for several reasons. First reason being are the roots. The roots have modified structures that we call knees. As these trees mature, they grow a vertical structure off of the root that can get 4 to 5 foot tall. And you can see here over the years on this specimen where lawnmower blades have cut open the knees that we're trying to develop on this tree. Additionally, this is a deciduous tree. It drops very small needles on the ground that are very hard to get up. Third, in my experience, the limbs of this tree tend to break relatively easily as compared to other specimens that we can use in the landscape, which brings us to alternatives for bald cypress. If you want an alternative to bald cypress that is evergreen, consider Cryptomeria japonica, or the Japanese Cryptomeria. I hope this video helps you make decisions about proper landscape plants for your yard. The list of plants that people do not prefer in landscapes is vast. Here again, if you have a plant that you just cannot stand in a landscape that we did not go over in this film, leave it down in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it, because that list can go on and on. Guys, as always, thank you for watching The Plant Doctor, and until next time, happy gardening.